morning, students. This is Dr. P. Chandana here with our computer science from the Department of Computer Science from IIRE. So here with the subject of computer organization and architecture. So you have already seen the past two sessions on the computer organization and architecture, where we have discussed with the basics of the computers, and then we have been gone for the context of CPU organization. So now in today's class, we just have a brief glance of the previous two topics and just we move on for the next instance, that is next functional unit, that is context of memory unit. So let's start with the basic things once again. So here is the things which you have been concentrating in today's class. We have already discussed the first three topics which have been defined with the context of basics of computers definition, followed by the important functional units in the computer science, in computers. And then the concept of operations, that how it is being generally performing the instruction execution and how it is getting operated with respect to instructions, that is being keenly explained by means of operational concepts. And then the system organization, that means the CPU organization or a computer organization which is having its internal components, how it is exactly displayed and how it is exactly organized among each other, so that it can have a better interoperation or interconnection or intercommunication and can give you the results better with respect to user's query. And now the next one is the context of CPU organization, where we have concentrated on the things of explanation, that what exactly the key units inside the CPU and which takes care of the maximum utilization of operations, or which units will take care of the maximum utilization of operations is explained in the CPU organization. And proceeding with that, in today's session, we'll be going to discuss with the context of memory organization and interfacing. So let's start with the next concept, where we are going for the memory organization and interfacing. So just have a glance of the definition of a computer and we'll move on the memory unit. So here, as a context of computer or a definition of a computer, we have said that computer is nothing but it is a peripheral device which accepts input, performs the task and presents you the results, or process the task and gives you the result. So how it has been displayed, or how it has been decided with the block diagram, we have stated with the input and we have given with the output. In between, we'll be having the interfacing device called as processor, where it is performing or intended to perform the task assigned by the user or the corresponding person who is interacting with the computer. So input is given to the system or processor and output is coming from the processor, that means display is done from the processor. Internally in the processor, we have three major functional units which you have already discussed. So first one is memory unit, next one is control unit, and next one is arithmetic logic unit. Now these three units are the basic essential units which performs the task intended for the corresponding user. For example, I want to execute a program, or I want to write a simple line of instruction. I need to open a word. All these things are the task performed by the user. So what is the user is intended for, or what is the user is performing, that should be operated or navigated by means of these particular units. So in the past session, we have already discussed what is the connection between control unit and arithmetic logic unit with the help of a context called as registers. So in the context of CPU organization, we have seen that how the intercommunication between control unit, arithmetic logic unit and registers are performed. So these are the three basic units which are connected in the control unit or in the processor, which takes a key role of generating or navigating the operations inside the processor. Now, apart from this, we have one more area where you have to focus. That is memory unit. Memory unit, where we are saying that this is a basic unit which is essential to coordinate and control the operations. Now, what are the temporary values you are getting? That is held in registers. What are the data which have to manipulate or operate? That is performed by ALU. Now, how to redirect them and how to restore them? That is managed and monitored by control unit. Now, what happens if the data should be stored for the long time? For this reason, we'll be going for the next case, that is memory unit. So, we are going to discuss this with the memory unit. Now, in this particular session, we are going to discuss about the memory unit. So, let's start with the session. So, let's start with the memory unit. So, what is a major unit or what is a major functionality of this unit? it is intended to store the data, or it is intended to store the maximum amount of information. So the basic intention is storage. So how do you store? We are not bothered we are storing 1 bit or 1 byte or n number of data. We are simply saying that it is a storage unit which holds the data. What kind of data, what form of data, we are not bothered. We are just saying that it is a context of storing the data. Now, memory unit is generally classified into primary memory and secondary memory. This is a general principle. So memory unit is generally classified into two concepts, that is primary memory and the secondary memory. So primary memory, what does it mean? Secondary memory, what does it mean? So let us see. So primary memory, as a name it is suggested, it is acted as a major source to store the information. But the thing is, it can store only small amount of information. It can store only small amount of information. Whereas secondary memory is also secondary device which can have the external source to handle the storage of data. So it can store or hold large amount of information. Large amount of information. So in this case, what you are trying to say is, so we are saying that it is a storage. So what form of storage? So you are concentrating only on the bit data, byte data, or what form of data, that is not bothered. How long you are storing the data in the memory is the major concern. For this reason, we will be dividing or classifying the memory into two types, that is primary memory and secondary memory. So we can simply classify these things in another form and we can name this with the devices. Let us see what it is. So memory unit is generally classified, or the types of memory can be classified into RAM and ROM. RAM, as the name it is suggested, it can hold the data, it can erase the data, it can rewrite the data. So the possibility is there in this particular RAM to handle the data in whatever the operations you want to perform. You can read, write, even you can erase the data inside the RAM. But here also we have a small amount of information, or it can hold only small amount of information. Can hold only small amount of information. Now this is the first case. The second thing is, it can hold the data only for smaller time. It can't hold the data for the larger amount of time. For example, the data, once the power is lost, the data will be lost. So it can hold for small amount of time. Next one, it can also be called as a volatile data because it is generally frequently navigating the data and it is getting lost whenever the power is lost. So once the power is lost, data will be lost. Data will be lost. So these are the three things in the RAM. So here it is been intended to store the data only for a small amount of information and small amount of time. And it can also be called as a volatile memory because it is been stored only for some extent of time. Once the power is lost, the data will be lost. When it comes to ROM, we have three things which are in opposite. So as it is holding small amount of information, this will be in a vice versa. That means it can hold larger amount of information. So next one is, it can hold for long periods. Longer period of time the data can be existing. And the data inside the ROM, the RAM represents the random access memory and ROM represents the read-only memory. So we can also say this as read-only memory. And this can be called as random access memory. Random access memory. So here the dynamic operations can be performed, but in this case only stable operations can be performed. So when it comes to ROM, we are saying that data is held for the larger periods and it will be handled for the long amount of information or larger amount of information. And the third case is, data, once power is lost, data will be lost in RAM, but this will be in a vice versa. That means reverse order. So data will not be lost. Even after power failure, the data will not be lost. So these are the simple classifications of the random access memory and read-only memory. Now, let us see the classifications in both the operations. So in other way, we can also say that we have just now we have said that memory is generally classified into two basic things, that is primary and secondary. In one way, RAM can be acted as a primary memory because it can hold only for a smaller extents of information, whereas ROM can be extended as a secondary memory because it can hold for the longer time of execution. So these are the two basic classifications which we can directly perform. Now, when it comes to RAM, we have two classifications again. One is static RAM. The second one is dynamic RAM. Static RAM and the second one is dynamic RAM. So as a name it is suggested, one to hold for the, even though it is holding for small amount of information, that will be maintained stable. And the second one is unstable. So these are the two basic classifications of a RAM. So in the static RAM, the general principle of RAM is to hold for some amount of information. And this is happening because of the capacitors used in the RAM cell. Because of the design of a RAM using capacitors, because of this reason only, the data will be lost once the power will be lost. And it can hold only for a small amount of information or small amount of time. Now, in the dynamic RAM, we will be using the leaky capacitors to hold the data. So what happens because of leaky capacitors? Once the charging is full, then the data will be existing. Once the charging is getting limited or getting drowned down, then the data will be lost. So the data will be valid only the charging is full. So this is a basic context of the leaky capacitors. Due to this reason only, the data will be lost once the power is lost. The data cannot be held for the long time. When it comes to static RAM, that will be reversed. So here we don't use any leaky capacitors, but here the cells have been using generally context called as resistors. Context called as resistors rather than the capacitors. So these resistors can be used to hold the data even though it is for a small amount of time. This can hold the data maximum. That means stable information can be maintained because of the resistors. So these are the two basic classifications in RAM. Now, when it comes to ROM, we have a first, the basic operation of ROM is it can write the data. Once you write the data, it will be stable. So you cannot change it. This is the basic idea of ROM. Now, we'll see the classification of ROM by using the first case, that is masked ROM. Masked ROM. So masked ROM, what do you mean by a masked ROM? So here what you're doing is you're writing the data once, that will be maintained stable. So how do you write the data? That fabrication has been designed by the chip designer itself. So that case is called as masked ROM. So masking is nothing but once the data is locked, it is been protected with a shield of information, and this shield will be called as a masking operation. So what happens because of this masking? The data will not be lost. So this case is called as masked ROM. And next one is PROM. So if at all the programmatic approach is applied to write the data onto the disk or write the data onto the device, then we call it as a programmable ROM. So programmable ROM represents that the data has been manipulated or written using a programmatic approach by any of the ROM designers or ROM program designers. The next one is EEPROM. So by using the programs, if the data has been written electrically representation or electrical representations, then we call it as a electrical PROM. So this is called as electrical PROM. Electrically programmable PROM. By means of electric pulses and programmable notations, the data will be written onto the device. Next one is electrically erasable PROM. Electrically erasable PROM. So what happens here? In the first three cases, we can just write the data. We cannot have any modifications for the data. But the second case or the last case allows you to handle the data. If the data you want to change, you can handle the data by means of, again, electrical pulses itself. And this context is called as electrically erasable PROM. So these are the basic classifications of the memory. And apart from this, we have the last option, that is flash memory. Flash memory, which is a drives or a simple storage devices or a singular storage devices, which handles the data in a fast track manner, and it is used to enable the data whenever you want to handle and whenever you want to rewrite. So something like EEPROM extension can also be called as a flash memory. Something like your USB sticks can also be called as a flash memory concept. Now, this is the basic classifications of the types of memory. So we just have the glance of this, and here you can see these are the classifications of RAM and these are the classifications of ROM. So these are the basic classifications of the memory types. Now we are going for the next case where we are saying that it is a storage unit. So memory unit is intended to store only the data. So how the data is stored, where the data is stored, and what form the data is stored. That is also one of the major concern. Because of this reason, we need to have a basic idea of how does the memory chip is exactly organized. We are saying that these are the different storage devices which have been used to handle the memory information. Now, if at all I want to store the data in memory, how can I store the data? In the form of bits. Now, data in the form of words or data in the form of bytes. Now, we are saying that data can be stored in the form of bits or words or bytes. Now, generally, if at all the memory has to be displayed or memory has to be represented, we will be representing that memory in the form of a chips, in the form of a design called as chip. Now, this memory chip is generally organized or representation context in the form of 2 power n into m chip. This can also be called as memory chip or memory cell or memory chip. Memory cell or memory chip. So what is the basic intention here? So if you are saying that pen is having, that pen will be defined with the nib. The pen will be defined with the color. The pen will be defined with the features. Similarly, if I am saying that memory is a storage unit, we have said so many classifications. Now we have to see that how this is exactly designed so that it can handle such amount of information. How long it can how long it can hold, how long it cannot hold, it is not a matter. We just bother about how the data has been managed and manipulated in memory. So in order to learn that, we need to go for memory chip organization. Generally, the memory chip will be represented in the form of 2 power n into m chip representation. And this can be represented using either ROM chip or RAM chip. ROM chip or RAM chip. So, whatever the intentions you want to start, they will be defining with the 2 power n into m chip representation. Now, what is this 2 power n into m? This will be representing the address lines and this will be representing the data lines. So, 2 power n will be representing the address lines and m will be representing the data lines. Why you are calling address and data lines? Because it is a chip. Chip is again a combinational circuit. So when you are talking about the combinational circuit, it need to have input and output. In order to represent that, we are defining with the address pins and data pins. Now, let us start with an example. So we have said that we are defining the RAM memory in the form of chip. Now, we have a proposal to design a memory with respect to 8x2 ROM chip. So we'll consider this as an example and we'll see that how the data is designed or how the memory is organized in such a way that data can be held. So this is represented in 8x2 format. That means 2 power 3 into 2, which means that 3 address lines are there and 2 data lines are there. So these are the two basic approaches. Now the address lines can be classified into A0, A1, A2. And data lines can be classified into D0 and D1. Now, what do you mean by data? Data is nothing but some value or data is nothing but some information you are processing. So, whatever the data you are giving, generally it will be represented in the form of byte. That means 0 to 7. So, it will process the information basing on 0 to 7 bits. So, 1 byte equals to 0 to 8 bits. So, we can have data 1, D0 as 8 bits plus D1 as 8 bits. D0 as 8 bits and D1 as 8 bits. So, these are the two basic things you have to, these are the basic concerns you have to learn. Now, we are saying that this is a chip. Chip means it is a combinational circuit. Because of this combinational circuits, we need to have inputs and outputs. So in this combinational circuit, we'll be using a context of decoder. And we'll be using the context of buffer. We'll be using a special pins called as chip enable and output enable. So these are the three basic things which we'll be using. So let us see how the organization is performed. Now, we have said that 3 address lines. So as it is a decoder circuit, it will work with the 2 power 3 combinations. So 2 power 3 will be giving me the output lines. That means 2 power n is equals to n or 2 power n combination of output lines. Or else we can say that n input lines is equals to 2 power n output lines. That means 3 input lines we have, which means 8 output lines. This is a combination of decoder. Combination of decoder. Now, we have 3 address lines. It is generating 8 output lines. 8 output lines. So, this is called 3 by 8 decoder. 3 input lines and 8 output lines decoder. So, in this decoder, what are the data you are enabling? You are giving 2 information, 2 data. That means 2 types of data you are presenting. D0 and D1. So, what you are doing? What are the output lines you are having? You are just giving as it is. As it is. Now here we are not minding that what kind of data it is presented. Now we have to enable which data should be activated. Should I enable the D0 or D1? Or should I enable the 0th pin or 1st pin or 5th pin or 6th pin? So these are the classifications which we need to make. So because of this reason, we need to have a chip enable pin. So chip enable pin activates the decoder to select which pin to get activated with the data. So which pin has to give the data, which pin has to stop the data, that is decided by the chip enable pin. Now, if at all I am saying the data is like this. Data is like this. So if the data is like this, what I have to do? This is something like D0, for example. D0. So D0 has to possess the data of 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1. Now, initially, I don't know what kind of data it was there. Initially, it may have some information like 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. It may have some information like this. Now, my data should be coming with this particular operation. Now, this should be erased and this should be overwritten. Now, how it is possible? So, in order to consider this, we will be using a special interface called as buffers. And we call this as a tri-state buffer. We call this as a tri-state buffer. So here, once the data is available in the pins, for example, here I am enabling D0. So I am enabling D0. So initially, data is something like 1, 0, 1, 0. Something information is available like this. Now, I am just changing my data with a new value. So in order to enable this, we will be enabling the enable pin. And this enable is maintained by using chip enable pin. So now what happens? Now what happens when the chip enable is activated, the corresponding bits will get activated and it will present the information to the corresponding bits. So what happens here? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and these number values will be overwritten with a new value. Now this should be projected to D0. So in order to project to D0, I should see whether I have to redirect to D0 or I have to stop it. So because of this reason, this tri-state buffers will be activated for a smaller amount of information. That means it can hold the data as it is and it can, when the impedance or when the enabling pin is enabled, then only the output is sent to the corresponding bits. The output is sent to the corresponding D0 or D1. So in this way, the memory organization is performed and we are calling the structure as a linear organization structure. So what happens here? The buffers will be holding for a small amount of information. That means it will wait for the enabling pin to enable. Once the enable has been happened, it will redirect to the corresponding data lines. So in order to consider this, here we are using data buffers also. So what are the data you are receiving? It is weighted in the bits first. Then tri-state buffers will get activated. Tri-state buffers will get activated once the enable pin is enabled. Once it is enabled, then only it will redirect the data to the corresponding data lines. Otherwise, it just maintains the data. just maintains the data up to some extent. Once the enable pin is enabled, then only it will redirect the data. So let us see the truth table for this. If chip enable pin is 0, then the decoder status is disabled and it will wait for the buffers to enable the location, and data is passed to the output buffers. So whatever the data is available default, that will be sent to the or redirected to the corresponding data lines. If both are enabled with a 1, then the decoder will be enabled, buffers are enabled, and the output will be from the chip. That means the output will be redirected from the chip. So this is a truth table for the corresponding linear organization structure. So now let us see with the next case. So in the first case, we have seen all the bits in a linear order. Now we are going for the second one, which is a two-dimensional organization. Why do you go for this? So generally, we are just bothered about a space constraint representations. Because of this reason, we are going for the next case, that is called two-dimensional operation. So in this two-dimensional operation also, we are performing the same thing. But what you are doing is, you are just classifying the bits into two different formats. One with the even classification and another with the odd number classifications. The buffer operations which you are presented for each and every bit is same as it is with the previous one. Now here only the thing is the bit variations will be different. Here also I need to possess 8 bits. So in order to represent 8 bits, I need to go for 0 to 7 representation of bits. In this 0 to 7 classification, I'll go for even number classification and odd number classification. Now these will be maintained as a separate informations and will be taken into 2 rows. Will be maintained in 2 rows. So because of this reason, what happens? These 2 rows data will be processed in such a way that data will be coming from the decoder. It will be redirected to corresponding data lines and it will be activating through the buffers, and these buffers will be again redirecting to the corresponding data lines. So here, in order to synchronize with the 8-bit representations, we will be using the same 3 address lines but with 2 types of decoders, because we need to check whether these 2 rows are activated, the first and third row is activated, or first and fourth row is activated or not. So in order to decide which column has been activated, we will be using the first decoder. And in order to activate the data lines, we are using the second decoder. So to select the row or to select the column, we are using the first decoder. So this will enable row or column selection, or I'll simply serve it with the column selection so that you may not get confused. So either I have to enable this one or this one or this one and this one. So this condition decision is being done by means of the first decoder, whereas the second decoder is to select the row representation. So I have to select this particular information or this particular information. So that is decided by the row classification. So in this way, the data has been presented for the data lines by means of 2 forms of decoders. The organization is similar to that of linear organization, but the thing is, only difference is in order to reduce the space constraint, because if you observe this, the synchronization is mandated, the context is similar or context is same, but the thing is, it is been maintained in a linear organization. For example, if you go for, this is for 8 bits, but if you go for 16 bits, what happens? Again, 16 lines of activation should be happened and 4 address lines has to be activated. So what happens here? If you go for such kind of case, the space will be going on increasing. So in order to avoid that, we'll go for this kind of organization. So this is called two-dimensional multiple memory chip organization. So here, A0 selects the 2 locations in a row and A1, A2 selects one of the 4 rows. So now the thing is, if at all I want to increase the data size, if at all I want to go for a data enabling, so if at all I want to go for the increase of data size, means if at all in the previous case it was 8 by 2 ROM. Now if I will go for 8 by 4 ROM, that means 4 data lines are available. Now in this cases, how to enable? So for this, what I have to do, again if I go for 8 by 4 combination, what is the case? 2 power 3 into 4, that means 3 address lines. 3 address lines and 4 data lines. 4 data lines. So here, because of this reason, we are going for the next case where you are combining 2 8 by 2 ROM chips to consider 8 by 4 data representations. So let us see how it is possible. Now, we are saying the same thing. So 8 by 2 chip. So 8 by 2 means 3 address lines, 2 data lines. Again, I am constructing 8 by 4. That means 3 address lines and 4 data lines. So that means the first figure is not changing. The second figure is only changing. So we can combine with the 2 8 by 2 ROM chips. So that means 3 address lines, 2 data lines. So this 2 and this 2 will be combining with the 4 data lines. Clear? So because of this reason, we are going for the construction in such a way that we are organizing or combining 2 8 by 2 ROM chips. So 8 by 2, 8 by 2. Okay. So for 8 by 2, single 8 by 2 ROM chip is processing with the 3 address lines. Okay. 2 data lines. Now the second ROM chip is also having the same thing, 8 by 2 organization. So 3 address lines and 2 data lines. So that means together we are having 4 data lines. 4 data lines. Now here the problem is, should I activate the lower chip or the upper chip? So if at all I enable the upper chip, D3 and D4 will get selected. If I enable the lower chip, D0 and D1 will be selected. So how to organize this? How to enable which chip has to activate, or how to decide which chip has to activate? In order to consider this, we are having again chip enable and output enable to decide the data and input. Now here we are saying that 3 address lines are specified for both the chips. Now in this particular things, we have to decide which chip has to get activated. Should I select first one or should I select second one? So that decision is made by A0 pin. A0, if A0 equals to 0, then upper chip will be enabled. So when the upper chip is enabled, the even pins will be activated. So even pins will be activated means what? So 0, 2, 4, 6. Like this, the even chips will be activated. And if A0 equals to 1, then lower chip will be enabled, which means that odd number sequencing is mandatory. So 1, 3, 5, 7. For example, it is 16-bit. Then 16-bit data will be 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 13, 15. So in this way, the odd sequence will be selected. So the first one is selected basing on A0. If at all it is 0, the first one will be selected. If at all it is 1, the second one will be selected. So in this way, the classifications of data or classifications of chip is maintained in order to increase the size of the word. Now this is a information how to combine 2 different chips to organize the data in a better manner, to increase the space for the better data or much amount of data. Now we are going for the next case where the address space is increased. So what happens if I want to organize with the n number of address with respect to less data? So if that is the case, I have to go for 4 address lines and 2 data lines. In this particular case of organization, we are going to see that kind of approach. So here we are having the same 8 by 2 ROM chips with the 3 address lines and 2 data lines. And we are just connecting these data lines to the same line and connecting these address lines to the same line. Now we need to go for a case where you have to select again chips, which chips has to enable. So I am saying 4 address space. As per this law, we have 2 power 4 combinations. So in this case, again I have to decide either upper chip should be enabled or lower chip should be enabled. So in order to organize this, we'll be using the special bit called as A3. So if A3 equals to 0, the upper chip is activated and the first data lines have been activated. That means D1 is activated. And if the lower chip is enabled, that is A0 equals to 1, then the second data line will be activated. What is the second line? So we have how many addresses? 2 power 4. So 2 power 4 is equals to 16 data lines. 16 data lines. So 16 data lines means 0 to 7, 8 to 15. So D0, D1. So in order to enable this, upper chip will be enabled. In order to enable the second one, lower chip will be enabled. So in this way, you have to perform the operation by selecting the corresponding chips. So these chips have been generated by means of selection pin using A3 equals to 0 and A3 equals to 1. So when A3 equals to 0 and A3 equals to 1, we will be enabling the pin. Now, I have to select whether to redirect to the output or to get the data from the output. So for this, it is again connected with the chip enable pin. So this chip enable is activated with the second case by means of again AND operators. In two cases, we will be operating with the AND operator so that your corresponding chip is activated and corresponding data line will be activated. So in this way, you are organizing the address space. Now, if you are selecting the lower chip, we are not bothered about selection of D0 and D1. If you are selecting the lower chip, that means you are having a context of low order interleaving. Low order interleaving. If you are selecting the upper chip, this is called high order interleaving. High order interleaving. So these are the two particular cases where you have to concentrate the enabling of either the upper chip or the lower chip. Now, so basing on this memory chip organizations, it depends on the scientist or it depends on the computer organization how it has been decided or how it has been designed. So basing on these particular chip representations of a CPU as well as the combination circuit used in the CPU as well as memory organization, two different proposals of designing the computers has been proposed. The first one is von Neumann architecture. The second one is Harvard architecture. In the von Neumann architecture, this is a general basic example of modern computers where you're mixing the instructions and data. What do you mean by combination of instructions and data? So let us see this. For example, I'm writing C is equals to A plus B. What is the meaning of this? I'm getting two values, A equals to 10, B is equals to 20, and I'm writing A plus B and I'm storing the result in C. So this means that data along with instruction. So what is if you convert this into mission notations, let us see how it happens. Add A comma B comma C. Now what happens here? So A plus B is added and it has been turned to C. So the notations can be in a reverse order. We are not bothered about notation. Just we are concentrating on how it is exactly operated. So what you are doing? So result will be stored in C. So store C. So this is performing addition and storing the result in C. So what is this? Instruction we have given is only single line instruction, but internally it is classified into two instructions. The first one is addition of addition of two numbers and the result is stored in C. Or else we can rewrite this like this. Addition of two numbers, store the result in C. So store C. Okay. So two instructions are there. So what are you doing? You are giving the instruction. You are giving the instruction as well as you're sending the data along with it. And you're performing the transaction along with it. This is called combination of instructions and data. Combinations of instructions and data. Generally, this kind of principle is used in modern computers. But whereas in the second case, we'll be using instructions and data separate. So in this case, what happens? We just don't bother about how the data is represented. We just bother about the instruction and the data as a separate entities. We don't have any operations. And in this case, we'll be using this in the low cache memory design or low level cache memory design. So what happens here? We don't bother about where the data is stored. We don't bother about what is the instruction. We just gather them, execute them and give the result. So this case is called as instructions and data as a separate entities, which is used in a low level cache memory design. So multi-byte data organization. So what do you mean by multi-byte data organization? So still now we have seen that memory unit as a storage unit. So now what do you mean by a storage unit? So what do you mean by a data representation? So that is also one of the concerns. So how do you represent data in the memory is also one of the concerns. As a general principle, we have learned that data will be represented in 0 to 7 format. For example, 8-bit information is processed as 0 to 7. So what is the 0 to 7? This is a radix or this is a representation. So this kind of representations have been having some specific classifications. So what does it mean actually? So let us see this. So let us see this. So first one is multi-byte data organization. When you want to represent the data in the form of sequence, then which one should execute first, which one should get next, that is decided by the multi-byte data organization. So in this particular organization, we'll be using MSB first. We'll be using MSB first. So what is the meaning of this? Here we are considering the data as a byte. That means 01, 02, 03, 04H, which is a multi-byte information. Now I have to store this in the data. So have to store means how it can be stored. So we'll be just synchronizing them into MSB format. That means the first one is placed in the first location. Second one will be in the next location. Third one will be third. Fourth one will be in the fourth. That means, for example, this is a memory address. The location of the MSB is starting with 100. Next one will be in 101. Next one will be in 103. Next one will be in 104. We can see this. We can see this. So we are saying that, sorry, we are missing with the second one and third one. Missing with the second and third one. So data is generally represented in the form of hexadecimal representation. Now this should be represented in the MSB format. In the MSB format. So in the MSB format means it should be given in the first location. Second one in the second location. Third one in the third location. Fourth one in the fourth location. So this case is called as most significant byte first. That means the first byte will be in the first location. The opposite or contrast for this will be little endian data organization. So little endian data organization means whatever the data you are storing, that means 01, 02, 03, 04H. This will be in the last. Next will be in the before last. And then third location and the first location. That means from down arrow to the top bottom up approach is followed in the corresponding least significant information. So what you are trying to say is the first data byte which you are storing, that will be stored in the last location. The last location of information data byte which you are calling, that will be stored in the first location. These two are the representations for the multi-byte data organization. So this is about the memory organization with respect to chip representation and other information. So let's have a brief introduction about what exactly the things we have discussed today. So here we have started with the basic things like what do you mean by a basic computer, and we have seen what is the importance of a computer. So we have said that it is a technical definition of a computer is it is a peripheral device which accepts input, performs the task and gives the results. So how many units we have in the processor, or how many units we have for performing the process? We have three basic functional units. Three basic in the sense how many functions, there are difference between these two things. How many units you have in the processor is different from how many units you'll be having in the computer. Here the basic functional units has been decided for the computer, not for the processor. So if you're concentrating on the computer, we are focusing on the units like input-output unit, memory unit, control unit and arithmetic logic unit. Arithmetic logic unit. Now whereas the operational concept is represented with how the data has been executed from getting the access of data to ending the process of data. For understanding this, we'll be having a context of getting the things like processor memory interfaces. Start with the case. So we have the operational concepts is involved with the basic functional units like memory, control unit, arithmetic logic unit. So why you are talking about these three units again? One, to store the program and access the information. Second one, to redirect the transactions. And third one is to operate the transactions. So because of these things, we have been calling these three units as a major units in operational concepts. Apart from this, we have some other things like instruction register, program counter, and general purpose registers. General registers. General purpose registers, or as we can say, write it clearly. So these are the things which are essential for the operational concepts. So what are the data you're calling from the memory? First, it will be loaded from memory to processor by means of a MAR and MDR. And what are the tasks, what are the things you have been executed using MAR and MDR? That will be redirected to instruction register program counter. And when it is been redirected to the arithmetic logic unit, the temporary data will be stored in the registers. Now once the registers are available, then the data should be processed to the next particular operation. So it can be redirected either to ALU again or memory again. So it depends on the operations which you are performing. So in order to perform all these things, control unit is playing the major role in redirecting the data collection from the memory to ALU, ALU to memory. Next one is system organization. The system organization which you are concentrating, it is been dependent on what are the major function units is taking care of all the operations inside the computer. So in this aspect, you'll be learning about the connection between memory unit, control unit and arithmetic logic unit. Now the next one is organization of a CPU. So in the organization of CPU, we'll be concentrating on what are the key components in CPU which takes care of understanding the things and operating the things perfectly. So CPU organization. CPU organization is a case where you have to understand how the components inside the CPU is getting activated to handle the data or processing the information. So in order to consider this, we are going for the case where the data or what are the key functional units which have been used for handling this. So we will be connecting this with the CPU organization is majorly concentrated on three basic units over here. One is control unit, arithmetic logic unit and the registers. Control unit, arithmetic logic unit and the registers. So what happens here? In this case, we are concentrating on data transfers between inside information or inside processing in the processor. So in this case, what happens? The control unit will issue the signals to both ALU as well as registers to pass the data or to transfer the information from to and fro ALU to register or register to ALU. It will issue the signals by means of the data operations. For example, if it is issuing the data transfers only, we'll be calling it as I/O signals. Otherwise, if it is receiving through the memory, we'll be calling with the memory operations by using read and write signals. Read and write signals. So these are the things which have been concentrated in the CPU organization. So we have seen this with the past session. Now when it comes to today's operations, we have been going for the next case, that is memory organization and interfacing. In the memory organization and interfacing, we are concentrating on the basic approaches like what is the importance of a memory unit, how it has been exactly classified and how it has been exactly organized or displayed, or it has been designed in such a way that data has been displayed or data has been considered in it as a storage concept. So in this case, the memory is generally classified into two particular types. One is primary memory. The second one is secondary memory. Primary memory and the secondary memory. So let us have the classification once again. I am defining memory as two classifications, primary memory and secondary memory. Now, in primary memory, we can also say this with the RAM. And this can be organized as ROM. It can be organized as ROM. So RAM is again classified into different formats. One is static RAM. The second one is dynamic RAM. So static RAM or dynamic RAM, whatever it is considered, we are saying that it can able to hold only for the smaller amounts of time and smaller amount of information. It cannot be used for the long run. This is about the RAM. And when it comes to ROM, they have different classification. The basic idea here is to hold the data for larger periods and larger extent, hold the information for the larger extent. So here we have a classifications of ROM, and here the data has been held only for the shorter period because of the capacitors we are using. Because of the capacitors we are using. Now, the next one is secondary memory. So secondary memory, which you already said that ROM is one of the classification. So in this ROM, we have the first thing. The basic idea here is to hold the information for the larger amounts and for larger extent of information. In order to consider this, we need to run with the data writing operation. So once the data is written, it cannot be erased back. So this is the context of a ROM. ROM is generally classified into basic operations like masked ROM, programmable ROM, electrically programmable ROM, electrically erasable ROM. So these are the different classifications of the ROM. So first one is make sure that you're writing the data for constant. So this consideration has been designed by the manufacturer. So once the data is written, data will be as it is. It cannot be lost. And here the basic examples of ROM can be your CD drives, you can easily say. Masked ROMs means it has been first written or defaultly designed by the manufacturer itself, that there will be a tin protection layer. Once the data is written, that will be in a stable manner. Next one is programmable ROM. So we can make sure that the data can be written in the form of programmatic approach by using a designer of a ROM. So this is called programmable ROM. Next one is electrically programmable ROM. So once the programmatic operations on the ROM is possible by means of electrical pulses, we call them as a EEPROM representation. Next one is EEPROM. The EEPROM context represents that if the data once written, if at all it can be managed and it can be handled for next erasable concepts, or if at all data can be rewritable for the next operations, then we can call it as EEPROM. So electrically erasable PROM, that's something like CD read and write, flash memories, all these things are coming under the case of EEPROM. So data can be written as well as rewritten or rewritten, or it can be erased for the basing on the requirement of the customers. Then it is called as EEPROM. So under this we can have a classification of flash memory, something like your USB sticks, floppy drives, other things are the examples of the flash memory. Now the data organization, the data organization of a memory is generally stored in the form of a context called as chip. So data in this chip will be in the format of 2 power n into m combination. 2 power m into n chip representation. So 2 power m means 3 address lines, or the m address lines, and n data lines. M address lines and n data lines. Now, so we have a same thing. In order to represent the chip organization of memory, we need to have 3 special entities or 3 special combinational circuits called decoder, buffer, and a special pins called chip enable and output enable. So CE represents chip enable, OE represents output enable. So these are the 2 special representation, and here you can see the example of writing with the chip organization. So we are considering the 8x2 ROM chip, and we are saying that it has been defined in 2 power n organization in the form of 2 power 3 into 2. That means it is possessing 3 address lines and 2 data lines. 3 address line represents A0, A1, A2. 2 address lines represents D0 and D1. Now that this D0 and D1 is representing 8 bits of information. So it is possessed with 0 to 7. So this is called 8 bits information. So these are the basic important elements in chip organization. So here is the example of a memory chip organization where you are considering the linear representation. So linear means we are just defining the circuit and we are simply saying that whether the 8 bits are received or not. So it is in a hierarchical representation. So here in this case the data has been given with 3 address lines, and data is supposed to come from the 8 address output lines. These 8 output lines are carry forwarded for the next communication. But what are the data that is presented on the chips, or the data that are presented in the output lines should be redirected exactly as it is, or should be having a negative enable, or it should have the enabling operation so that it is changing the data. That is decided by means of the enable logic and chip enable and output enable pins. So once the chip enable pin is disabled, that data will be in the buffers itself. This will be redirected to the data output pins. If the chip enable equals to enabled, that means it is 0 equals to 1, then the data in the buffers will be activated with respect to the inputs that are received, and it has been redirected to the corresponding destinations. So destination is D0 and D1. So in this way, data is transferred and processed in the corresponding linear organization. The basic idea here is to just understand what exactly the memory organization or how exactly the memory chip organization is presented. But this kind of approach in linear representation may not be suitable for the larger extent of information. As this is for 8 bits information, this can be classified well. But if you go for the larger extent of information, for example, 16 bits, 32 bits, in such cases, it cannot be possible. It cannot be handled in a linear approach. For this, we'll be going for a next case, that is two-dimensional organization, where you're defining the same data in two different rows, and we try to enable which row has to check, which row has to give the data. That is processed by means of a chip enable and output enable pin. And in order to select the rows and columns, over here we are using two forms of decoders. Decoder 0, decoder 1. One enables the corresponding rows and one enables the corresponding column, and the other one enables the corresponding rows. So in this way, the data is being synchronized and data is being organized by means of the pins. So here, as you have seen in the linear fashion, we don't have a linear representation from 0 to 8 bits. We have a combination of bits. That means one with the even sequence and one with the odd sequence. So here you can find the odd sequences, and here you can find the even sequences. So in these two sequences, the data will be presented as it is, and it can be processed in the information. The information can be handled very perfectly. So the data from this pin or this pin is activated, or this pin and the vice versa pin is activated. That is decided by means of a chip enable pin and output enable pin by enabling the corresponding decoders. So here is the operation. So if you are selecting A0, then any two locations in the row will be selected. If you are selecting the second decoder, any of the 4 rows will be selected. So in order to increase the size of the word, or in order to increase the size of a memory, we can have the combination to handle the chips, or we can have the combination chips to handle the size of the data or size of the word. So in this case, we are considering two 8x2 ROM chips which are having the same enabling pins, same output pins, same address pins and same data pins. But in order to increase the space size of the word, we are using two chips with two different data lines. So D0 to D3. So here we are using the 8x4 organization to decide a data representation. So we are using the same combination of address but with 4 data lines. So 3 address lines will be common but 4 data lines will be presented. So we are selecting the same address pins and 2 different data lines and 4 different data lines. And we are making sure that which pin has to activate or which chip has to activate by means of a address line A0. A0 will be enabling the A0 equals to 0 will be enabling the upper chip. Otherwise, it will be enabling the lower chip. And it will present the even sequence if the upper chip is selected. If it is selected with the lower chip, then it is being presented with the odd sequence of bit information. Next one is address space increasing. So address space representations are considered by means of changes in the address. In the past case of examples, we have seen only 3 address lines because of 8x4 chip. Now there are some cases where you need to increase the space of the address. That address has been given with a 16x2 combination. So as it is 16, it will generate 4 data lines. So it will generate 16 data lines, It will generate 16 data lines. So in the 16 data lines, you have to either select the first organization of 0 to 7 or the second representation from 7 to 15. So these are the 2 combinations we have to select. Again, here also same. The first pin chip will be enabled if at all the A3 bit is set to 0. The second chip will be enabled if at all the lower bit is selected to 1. So in this way, we are organizing the data with respect to address space. Next one is low order interleaving. So we are saying that if at all we are selecting the upper chip to activate the data representations, we are calling them as high order interleaving. And if at all you are saying that it is selected with the lower chip representations, we are calling it as low order interleaving. So basing on the modern computers, memory chip organization, CPU organization and other representations, scientists has proposed 2 basic architectures. One is von Neumann architecture. The second one is Harvard architecture. The von Neumann architecture we have followed with the instructions and data as a combination. It is generally used in modern computers. Whereas Harvard architecture is a case where you are using instructions and data as a separate entities, and it will be represented in the lower level cache. Low level cache representations. Next one is multi-byte data organization. If you have to project the data in the multi-byte representations, that means you have to keep the data as a bulk. When you want to keep the data as a bulk, then you have to process the information in what way. That is decided by the multi-byte data organization. Now, this multi-byte data organization is proposed with two different formats. One is big endian format. Second one is little endian format. In the big endian format, whatever the data is coming first, that will be placed first. So here we are not bothered about the locations. We just concentrate with the sequence number 1 to n. And here we are concentrating on the most significant byte first. Whereas in the second one, we are placing the data in a reverse order. That means first come, first serve. So what are the data you are placing? That will be going to the last. And what is the last data you are presenting? That will be coming to the first, the reverse order. It is following the bottom-up approach. So by this, your memory organization, this is the way how the memory organization is followed. So this is about the context of memory subsystem and memory organization interfacing. So today's concept, we have learned about the chip organization of memory, storage information in the memory, followed by how it has been processed by means of the address pins and output pins that has been followed in the memory chip organization. Apart from this, we have already seen memory types, and we have been seeing that how the data in the memory will be processed by using multi-byte data organization. So this is about the memory organization unit representation in computers. So we have been discussed till now the basic definitions of a computer, how it has been getting operated by using functional units, and how the memory organization is presented in the memory unit, and how the chip of the memory has been generally represented. Followed by this, we have already seen how the CPU organization is processed. So this is about the memory organization information. So this is about the class. So today I'm going to conclude this for the corresponding session. So next class we'll see about a case of input-output organization by taking 3 different devices, and we'll see how the operations have been performed with respect to the central processing unit and other input-output units. So in the next session, we'll see about this in the context. So IO organization is discussed for the next session. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.